Hello everyone and hello Simmers! Welcome to another video. So this is a video in the series about neighborhoods, and today we finally made it to Riverblossom Hills as I promised. So I was actually looking quite forward to making this video because Riverblossom Hills is a neighborhood that I never played much in. So if there is any special lore or a great mystery in this place, I probably wouldn't have noticed before. Also, a short disclaimer before we dive into this neighborhood. In my video about the Wine household, I kept calling Riverblossom Hills for Riverblossom Valley, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to do that again. So I don't know what it is with me and this name, for I just can't seem to accept that it's called Riverblossom Hills and not Riverblossom Valley. So somehow I think it sounds better with Riverblossom Valley, but let's see how I manage this when I begin this video. But now you know. So let's begin with my first thoughts about this neighborhood. So it came with the expansion pack Sims 2 Seasons, and I think that the Seasons pack was quite revolutionary in regards to the realism of the game. The coming and going of seasons and the changing of weather during the day adds so much to the gameplay. Just the fact that your sim can get heat stroke for being outside in the sun for too long, or get hypothermic in the cold winter, it both hinders and advances the gameplay, and I really enjoy that. The changing weather gives simmers new opportunities in lives. They can culture their garden and live off the harvest of products. They can eat what they harvest and live a life that isn't controlled by a 9-to-5 job, but rather the changing season. The opportunity to grow crops were already introduced in The Sims 1, but not as realistic as with seasons here. So to me, this expansion pack is quite special. And my very first impression of this neighborhood was, like I said, that I haven't used it much in my gameplay. And I did play a lot with the plantsim in the Greenman family, but that's about it actually. I haven't really explored any of the other families. It's quite clear though in this neighborhood that the inhabitants' lives revolve around the weather and the coming and going of seasons. And that is a suitable feature for a neighborhood coming with the Seasons expansion pack. If we take a look at the area, what I first noticed was that this suburban neighborhood seems even further from the city than some of the other neighborhoods. Especially Belladonna Cove, for example. Here it's landly with fields and large spaces. The neighborhood is nestled between hills and water, with a river flowing down through the neighborhood itself. There is a lot of fields around, indicating that this place is rural and active farm area. So decorations around the neighborhood also supports this, since there are silos and barns strewn across the place. The area seems lush and fresh, and here under the Sims 2 water tower is a great rock that to me looks like a spring. So in my native language, this neighborhood is called Spring Hills, or that is a direct translation. So I noticed the spring instantly. And also there is a water tank on the other side of the river as well. So I imagine that the lushness and cleanness of this neighborhood is because of an underground clear running spring that supply the neighborhood with fresh water. So all in all, my first thoughts are that this is the countryside near a growing city, and that the city has grown and suddenly this village place becomes a suburb instead, but without losing its identity as countryside. So I find it very interesting that many of the houses look like vineyards or in some way references to wine. For example, with the wine tapestry in many of the vacant houses. And many of the houses looks like something that can be found in south of France, at least to me. But the weather here is cold. There is no summer and the gameplay begins in winter for most of the households. So there is, as I see it, a contrast between the subtropical looks of the houses and then the more temperate weather. But let's take a look at the name next. So I just jumped the gun on the name when I mentioned that it's called Spring Hills in my native language. So I grew up with that name of the place, And Riverblossom Hills is not too different from Spring Hills though. My first thought of the name is that Riverblossom Hills sounds idyllic and sunny. It sounds very harmonic and seems a great match for this neighborhood, also considering the river going through and the hills surrounding it, obviously. Actually, there are hills surrounding the entire neighborhood, making it seem even more secluded, remote and rural. And that's a nice touch to the general impression of this place, I think. The blossoms part is interesting though, because obviously it's a reference to flowers blossoming. And used figuratively, we also talk about blossoming or blooming love, or a blossoming and blooming future. So I think that the name indicates a lot of potential for simmers in this neighborhood. And if we take a look at the bio for the neighborhood, there is a lot of plant metaphors too. It talks about families planting firm roots in this neighborhood. Love is also growing, and new relationships are blossoming. Problems are bound to sprout too. All in all, very nice plant and flower references, and with the added feature of the season's expansion pack that winter can turn hearts cold too. So also the bio indicates then that when we first load the game, it's spring of the neighborhood where spirits are rising, and there is a potential to redeem, even though it's winter when you first load the games in most households. So I think it doesn't really match up with the actual gameplay here and the bio, but it's a minor detail. So this thought came to mind when I read the Sims wiki page on Riverblossom Hills. There it says that the families in this neighborhood seems to be based on the families from Pleasantview. And I definitely recognize that on the initial look at the households. They seem alike, but I didn't really recognize that many similarities though, and I've done a few videos already on the Roth family, so you can see most of the similarities there. But Riverblossom Hills is the only one of the three most recent neighborhoods that to me could seem like an alternative universe to that of Pleasantview. Strangetown with the Belagoth clone is an alternate universe because even though Belagoth clone roams Strangetown, it's not an alternative story to Pleasantview as such because it's the same storyline. Belladonna Cove, for example, also isn't an alternative universe as such, even if Belagoth was there. Again, it's the same plot, so it would rather represent a different timeline. So when I mean alternative universe, I mean the simmers are the same, just different. It's not the same story as in Pleasantview with the turning point of Belagoth. Here is a different story, just seemingly or potentially alike. The similarities between the Roth and the Goth families are the clearest example of this. The Roth family seem an alternate story to that of the Goth family, with just a few years before the gameplay. Sander is a child, Sandra is a teenager, so here there's a few years difference compared to the child Alexander and the just grown up Cassandra in Pleasantview. Morty is an adult, where Mortimer has become an elder. So in the Roth family there are tensions between Stella and Morty. Stella is, I think it's indicated that she's falling out of love with Morty. And it's also indicated that she's distancing herself from her family. And I see that as a reference to the time in Pleasantview before gameplay, where we see Belagoth spending time with Don Lothario in his condo. Also, the Roth family has a telescope on their roof, so maybe the future also holds an alien abduction for Stella. And I guess that's up to the players to decide. And there are also other similarities between other families in the neighborhoods too, but I don't have time to go through those in the video here, so please, if you recognized any of them, please list them in the comments below. So I won't talk too much about the Roth and the Wan family because there are separate videos on them already, so go check those out if you're interested. Also, I won't dive too deep into these households as I would like to do separate videos on them at some point. So let's save some of the goods for later and just take a quick view into the households of the neighborhood. So the first household I want to talk about is the Greenman family. They are the most noticeable family in the neighborhood. Most of all because the game with this family introduces a new type of sim, the plantsim. Already from the neighborhood view of this household, it catches my eye that they live in this huge greenhouse. Greenhouses are big in Riverblossom Hills, and many of the more well-off families have a greenhouse. But, well, no one has a greenhouse as large as a Greenman's. So the family consists of Jason Greenman, who is Gabe or Mackie's brother, and his wife Rose, a plantsim. And Rose has produced the Spore, a plantsim baby, Daisy, after her marriage to Jason. So I would consider Daisy the common child, even though Rose produced her alone. So also curiously enough, Jason doesn't have a memory of Daisy's birth. So the Greenman family is also interesting because of the plantsim community. Rose comes from a plantsim community near Riverblossom Hills, and the landscape could easily accommodate such a community by the looks of it. So if we take a look at the neighborhood album, we see that Jason gave up his name and his lifestyle for his green goddess. So he changed his last name, O'Mackie, to Rose's Greenman, I guess. And by lifestyle, I guess that the pair designed their entire home around Rose's and Daisy's plantsim needs. And if we take a look at the Greenman family album, the first photos shows Jason and presumably his brother Gabe O'Mackie exploring the wilds. I presume that they are deep in the woods around Riverblossom Hills. And in the next photo, it shows Rose falling in love with Jason after the two brothers have stumbled upon this plantsim community. The next photo is the pair's wedding photo, and we see that they got married in the plantsim community. The next photo again is of Rose socializing with the other inhabitants of Riverblossom Hills, indicating that the pair chose to live in the neighborhood rather than in the plantsim community. And it must have been hard for Rose to integrate into another community like that. In the photos, we also see that the plantsim community is in a hilly spot with lots of trees, and interestingly enough, also near water. So my guess is that the community is located here, near the large rock in the woods near the bay. So I would settle down there, after all, if I was a plantsim. All their needs can be fulfilled near a warm rock and fresh water. But this is more or less what we know about the plantsim community. I guess it's up to our own imagination to integrate the story into a potential gameplay. So please let me know in the comments if you ever use this plotline in your personal gameplay. So if we take a look at the Viejo household, it's clear to me that it's a community of more families in this large house, country house. We have the elderly friends, Catherine Viejo and Betty Goldstein, who were friends with Andrew Martin's deceased mother, Linda Martin. And Andrew, he has a son, Jacob Martin, whose mother, Elena, is deceased. So apparently they all lived in this huge house, as both Catherine and Betty has memories of moving in before the deaths of Elena and Linda. And I can see the similarities between the Martins, Andrew and Jacob, and the Dreamers of Pleasantview. Both are single fathers with a teenage son who has lost a wife and mother, and have to cope with that and continue their lives. So then there is the McGregor household with the one and only Leod McGregor. So according to his bio, Leod comes from a long line of farmers. He left his homeland to start his own farm, but will he be able to run it without the help of friends and families? So I guess his homeland is supposed to be Scotland, since he's wearing a kilt, and as his last name is McGregor, which is a common Scottish last name. I also see some similarities between McGregor and Don Lothario of Pleasantview. Apparently both of them are quite charming, and more than one inhabitant of the neighborhood has a keen eye on him. Though in Leod McGregor's household bio, it says that he seems to enjoy the loneliness and he might forget to cultivate friendships. So Don Lothario isn't much about friendships, and Don certainly don't forget to cultivate his romances. So I see the two households as opposites almost, McGregor seemingly introverted, and Lothario seemingly quite extroverted. So in this neighborhood there is only 3 community lots, which is quite few compared to the other neighborhoods. I think it's because this neighborhood is less about going out and socializing and more about cultivating the garden and the family at home. There is the local supermarket, town center grocery, where they sell only local fresh fruits. Then we have the Hills Community Center, which is an outdoorsy place where simmers can cultivate friendships and still enjoy the sun or the rain. There is an ice skating rink, a lake, and places to play and grill. And last there is Bell's Boutique and Tailoring, where they sell all from overalls to formal wear. So I guess the game creators really want us to establish some marriages in this neighborhood. They also have a new stock of winter and raincoats, so this shop has everything that the inhabitants will need to live their lives. I also think it's worth to note that this shop tailors, so this is not a fast fashion shop. The inhabitants of Riverblossom Hills are in sync with nature. They dress for practicality and don't throw away. So all in all, these 3 shops are really all the Sims will need. They need groceries, they need clothes and spaces, and that's about it. So Riverblossom Hills seems to me to be made for the simple life, where nature and seasons dictates the everyday. So this was a quick look into the idyllic and rural neighborhood of Riverblossom Hills, where the simmers' lives revolve around the changing weather and the changing seasons. With this neighborhood came the introduction of weathers and seasons, and also a new type of sim with new needs. The drama lies just underneath the harmonic surface though, and it's up to us players to either unfold the drama or resolve it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Stay tuned for more videos. Bye!